All right, how's it going, everybody? This is Jake and Kevin from the Paws podcast, and we have, of course, some big news today coming out of FIU men's basketball, where it has been officially confirmed by FIU athletics that head coach Jeremy Ballard will not be returning to the program next season. This was the final year of his contract. The news is following, of course, FIU's loss to Missouri State last night in the Conference USA tournament. Kevin, obviously, I said we have some news. I didn't say we have some surprising news because I think you and I can both agree the writing was on the wall, especially with how the season sort of panned out and obviously getting first rounded in the CUSA tournament that this might have been it for Ballard. So I'm just going to say it's not shocking at all, but it is still crazy to see a coach that has been at FIU for 8 years finally heading out.
Yeah, it's definitely tough to see because he's a good guy, one of the nicest coaches we've known. Super good with us when he gave us the time whenever he wanted to. I'm gonna miss him. Just the type of person he was, the leader he was, the guy he was. It was a good vibe always around JB, his coaching staff, the team. Unfortunately, that isn't what keeps you around. It's wins and losses, and Jeremy Ballard just did not win enough games to stick around. It was a very disappointing season. I think just the expectations for this team were very high. Just given the team that they brought in, the amount of money that was invested in this team, the backing from the athletic department, and even the president, and finishing with a 15-17 record, 8-12 in conference play. You have some bad losses on the road to UTEP. You lost to Delaware at home. You just did not – a lot of games that you just weren't able to finish, unfortunately, this season. And it's a big reason why he's not here. I don't think it's solely on this season. I think you have to look at the last couple of years and just performance hasn't been there, unfortunately. 10 wins the year before. You didn't win a single conference road game. They finally snapped that streak this year. But still, results weren't there. I think it was time for a change. I think everyone could say that. And I want to say Jeremy Ballard was the longest tenured coach here at FIU at the moment. Yeah. And this is the second major coaching hire that Scott Carr will undergo in his FIU tenure. He's already hired, obviously, Willie Simmons after that with McIntyre. You hired Matt Dunn for soccer with Jonathan Garber departing over to Mississippi State. I guess third, if you want to consider women's soccer one of the bigger sports here at FIU, and now Jeremy Ballard. So a lot of movement, but I think should be an interesting pool of candidates. Unlike football, I'm not very familiar with the pool, but there are definitely a couple names that stick out, and we'll definitely dive into those.
I was about to say, Kevin, I'm getting Mike McIntyre vibes from this recording, doing it literally right after the news has come out, but Ballard, longest tenured coach and has the most wins as a coach at FIU. But when you look past that, the Panthers have never gotten past the second round in a Conference USA tournament during his time here. And while the 113-114 or 113-141 overall record as a Panther is sort of modest, the 50-95 conference record definitely hits you like a train with how with how bad it is. It reads out on paper. So we have a statement from the athletics director, Scott Carr, that I will read off here. It goes like this, quote, "I want to thank Jeremy for pouring his heart and soul into the program for the past 8 years and for the genuine and respectful manner in which he operated every day. Jeremy is one of the best human beings and leaders I have ever encountered, and his authenticity carried over into the student athletes he coached and the culture he established. Jeremy has left the program in a better position than he inherited, and I want to thank him for that improvement. However, the on-court success has not been to the level we aspire to. We want to be competing for conference championships and NCAA tournament berths. With that standard in place, a comprehensive national search will begin immediately, and there will be no further comment until that is completed," end quote. It certainly reads off similar to the statement given when Mike McIntyre was let go, Kevin, but the message I'd like to say is still the same, where Ballard, especially the last few years, has had a sort of consistent tenure at FIU, similar to Mike McIntyre, which was 4-8, 4-8, 4-8. Ballard the last few years has been win in the first round of the Conference USA tournament, but get knocked out the one game later. And this year they didn't even get to that point. But what Scott Carr is correct in, and you mentioned it earlier, Kevin, is that Ballard, great guy, always a pleasure to talk to for the post-game press conferences, win or lose. He's always happy to give remarks, and he's always thankful to the media that show up to the games. I don't know how many times I've been dapped up by the man after a press conference that ends, Kevin. It's quite common, but it's crazy, that this program will be looking for a new head coach, because I mean, Ballard was the face of the program for that amount of time with all these players coming in and going out. The way the transfer portal works, to have consistency at the head coaching position was welcome, but it was not good enough to FIU's standards.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you look at what the most important sports are at FIU and which ones are the ones that generate the most money, men's basketball is right behind football. So you need to win to do that. And we saw what 1 year for a team like Florida Atlantic does when they make the Final Four, and how that helps a program like that. I'm not saying FIU needs to go make a Final Four, but you need to make a deeper run in the conference tournament. You need to be competing for the conference championship year after year. And it's unfortunate that this team couldn't do it, because I thought this team was really good. You had a great player like Corey Stevenson, who now will most likely declare for the NBA draft. You'll have someone like Eric Debami. We'll see what his future holds. You have really good players on that team. Ashton Williamson, I'm curious to see if he returns. It's a lot of guys. We'll see what happens. It was an older team. It was a veteran team. So a lot of seniors, a lot of guys who, so a lot of guys who will not be with the program next year, just with eligibility and all that stuff being ran out of. But yeah, it's unfortunate that this team couldn't live up to the hype. We have some great moments, but unfortunately this team just couldn't do it. And hopefully whoever the next coach is, hones in on recruiting in South Florida, because I think there is talent here. Maybe it's not the best talent, but there is very good talent in South Florida. And I think that starts there. It starts with bringing in experience. I'm curious to see what this next coach does, how they manage to transfer portal too, and how much money FIU athletics will give to the men's basketball team, because as important as football is, and I understand that, you need to win at men's basketball to succeed in college athletics, and it needs to start with putting some money into this program, and they did that, and unfortunately it didn't work out. But maybe you put in more. Maybe you have to put in the same amount. Maybe it's just about coaching. Maybe the guys weren't coached the right way. Who knows? But I think I'll be very curious to see what happens in the coming weeks.
And obviously the proof is in what the other teams based in South Florida have been able to do these last few years with building consistent winning programs, including our rivals in Boca Raton. And of course, obviously the University of Miami as well, bringing in Jay Lucas. And all of a sudden, they're once again a contender, not just in the ACC, but to get into the tournament. So, by the way, the new head coach will be the 10th in program history, and you said it, Kevin. A lot of seniors leaving, and it's going to be a difficult time for him to convince some of the potential returners to stay and not enter the transfer portal, to sort of accept a new regime at the helm here at FIU. So it's going to be similar to what Ballard just had to do in this final season, to pretty much craft a brand new roster from the ground up. And I think FIU certainly deserve a head coach that can do that. And Kevin, we obviously, who knows how long it's going to take for this new coach to be hired. But I know there are a few names rolling around off the bat. Kevin, there's one name that I know you are very, very high on. So I'll let you introduce your top pick at the moment for who could be a solid replacement for Ballard.
Well, I think this is just the obvious one, right? You look at when we looked at the FIU football coaching search, there were the obvious names. There was the Tim Harris's, the Willie Simmons, the Frank Ponce's. I think the one that you look at here, and I don't know what the search looked like 8 years ago, and obviously that is a couple. I mean, well, maybe one athletic director ago, Jake, So because Pete Garcia maybe hired Jeremy. I mean, you got to look at Frank Martin over at UMass, Florida, FIU alum, Florida guy. This is the guy. This is your guy if you're looking at slam dunk hire. There's nothing better than that, I think. In terms of you're not going to maybe you get a power conference assistant coach, but I think for FIU, you need to find a coach with head coaching experience. You need to find a guy who has ties to South Florida, who has won at the higher levels. And Frank Martin does it all. I know UMass is a fine team. They're not a great team, but I think Frank Martin coming down over to South Florida would be a huge, huge, huge for this FIU program. So that's definitely one of them. Outside of that, I really can't give you many names. I would have to do my personal research. I would have to do some talking around. But I think overall, Frank Martin seems to be the slam dunk number one option right now.
Mm-hmm. You know who chipped in for some reason with some other names that I guess I'll just point out because he was kind enough to give it to us is, of course, Daniel from the Feathers and Field Goals podcast, who dropped a couple of interesting names here. I think the first one is Jordan Fee, who is an associate head coach at Florida Atlantic. Before that, he spent some time at Nova Southeastern you know how much of a powerhouse NSU is in the Division II level. Obviously is, I believe, a South Florida he's from Pennsylvania, but most of his time coaching wise has come here in South Florida at Nova Southeastern and Florida Atlantic. So it's certainly an interesting name. He also brought out Jeremy Schulman, who is currently the coach of UT Martin, who is an alma mater of MTSU. So he does have ties to a Conference USA based team. Prior to that, he spent over a decade at Eastern Florida State, which is another Division II team, I believe it. Or it's I don't know off the top of my head if that's D2 or maybe it's a community, but regardless, he spent quite a bit of time there, so he's also used to the Sunshine State. Eric Pastrana is another name that was brought up, and I believe currently an associate coach for the University of Miami. So obviously, not much more. A whole lot needs to be said about
one other name. One quick name to mention is Rod Strickland. He's the LIU head coach. I believe he does have some ties to South Florida, and he'd be a pretty good guy when it comes to helping out this program. He's been at FIU before. I mean, he played FIU a couple times. They went 24-10 this past season in the regular season, and I do believe they won the NEC. So I think they've won that conference 2 years in a row, I believe. Well, no, they didn't. They lost. Yeah, they've been good. They've been a good squad. They've come to FIU before, so he knows what this is like. So those are my two options: Frank Martin, Rod Strickland. There's going to be more that pop up. I know there's the former Columbus coach who is now the University of Miami assistant coach. Mm-hmm. He'd be another good option. So yeah, those are just some that kind of pop up in my hand. I think it's Moran is his name. Andrew Moran. Okay. So he'll be another good option. Again, it's too early to tell. Those are just some that kind of rolled in my head. I would have to do some research. I would have to do some talking, but I think you're looking at a South Florida guy. I think that is what works. We saw it with Willie. He is a Florida guy, not a South Florida guy, but a Florida guy who has experience in Florida, winning in Florida. That is what you need, and that is the guy.
He became a South Florida guy immediately. His first year, he's now a South Florida dude. I mean, he gets chicken and waffles at Green Chicken, Kevin. That's how you know. That's how you know. But yes, keep it in Florida. Obviously, just don't go for the flashy pick. Some people are already saying, get Rajah Bell, get Carlos Arroyo. And listen, we obviously love both of those guys.
I would be very stunned if those were our hires. I don't think maybe Arroyo, but I don't know what head coaching experience those guys even have or coaching experience, period.
It's like Isaiah Thomas, you know? It's like, come on, let's get an established coach that can navigate efficiently through both the transfer portal and NIL. And those are the two big priorities. And I guess number 3 would be that we already mentioned, familiar with the South Florida area and the talent that it can bring, which is extensive, Kevin. So, I mean, that really is all we can say right now. Again, Ballard, class act. We never actually got him on an episode of the Paws Up podcast, but we have spoken to him quite a bit over the years, Kevin, at either Hoopla at practices leading up to games, at the games themselves, and of course all the other instances here and there. We'll run into him. He's always been a nice guy, classy. We of course wish him the best of luck wherever he ends up next. But
no word yet on interim. No word yet on interim head coach at the moment. So we really can't report
that is right as well.
Because I think it works a little bit differently in basketball than it does with football. So I don't know exactly how it works, but yes, no word yet. By nothing yet in terms of who will be the interim. But I don't think that really matters, if I'm being totally honest with you. I think this head coaching search. I mean, the Willie one took like 2 weeks. So
yeah, it did. So
I think this one will take more or less around the same time, maybe a little bit more. But it's an attractive program. You're in South Florida. You have a nice campus. It's a pretty decent arena. Not the best. Not
controversial court though.
Yes, yes. Hopefully that court gets a change. It needs a change.
Yeah,
but
it's over.
You're in South Florida, man. I mean, you're looking at other programs do what they've done in this area. You have to be excited. You have powerhouse programs. So yeah. And I do think Carlos Arroyo is an option. Just saying. That'd be a pretty nice option.
It would be the splashy option, no doubt about that. But
splashy, but man, I mean, you're going to be attracting a lot of not just Puerto Rican players who are really good. You could recruit a little bit more internationally with Carlos Arroyo, and
yes,
you'd be diving into a new spot. You'd be diving into a new area of basketball players that we haven't seen at FIU in a very long time.
And that's something that women's basketball has been able to do for a while, Kevin. It's explore the international market. A good chunk of their rosters over the years has been primarily players from Europe, from Africa, from South America. So that is an interesting point as well. But again, can Arroyo handle NIL and transfer portal? Jim Larinaga at the University of Miami couldn't. Then they brought in a guy who could, and Jay Lucas, and so far that program is looking into the right direction over there in Coral Gables. And I hope FIU can replicate that on a level that lets them compete in Conference USA. This is a good conference. This is a fun mid-major conference in basketball, Kevin. You've seen what Liberty's been able to do, and obviously, who knows? Maybe Missouri State can give them the business. You never know. But I feel like we've reached a wall here with Ballard, because now we have to play the waiting game, figure out who Scott Carr and the team at FIU Athletics is going to find at this replacement. So final thoughts on the situation here, Kevin?
Yeah, tough one. Obviously, you don't want to see this with a guy as nice and as great as Jeremy, but it's unfortunate. It had to happen. I think it was going to happen. I think it needs to be cleared. This is not a firing. Jeremy Ballard was not going to be under contract in the next month or so, I think, or very soon. So there's no way to fire a guy. And if they did fire him, they're going to buy out a month of a contract. So wishing Jeremy nothing but the best. He's going to land somewhere. He's a very good assistant coach, I think. I think he'll be a very good assistant coach.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see where he lands and the rest of his staff. But whoever the next coach is, we'll be talking about it. We'll definitely have him on the podcast. And
yes,
I'm sure there'll be an introductory press conference for him too. So yeah.
Of course, all this is to say, hopefully this drops before it starts, but women's basketball has a good chance at a run for a Conference USA championship. Of course, had the first round bye. Now they take on Jack State at 3:00. And of course, Kevin, you have baseball rolling on, and it's been an interesting season to say the least. Obviously, I think that mandates a full episode of the Paws podcast to talk about what has gone right, wrong, and really bad for the baseball team thus far. But I know they do have a weekend series on the road, the first in Conference USA against Western Kentucky, starting on Friday. So, yeah, there could be a lot to discuss there.
It's been an interesting ride with the baseball team. I really have kept my opinions to myself with that one, but. Yes. We'll see. They have a chance. 0-0. Go to Western. Not an easy place to play, but they did come out on top the last time they went over there. But we'll see. They got Preston Prince back, so he looked good in his opening start of the season. But outside of that, it's been an interesting situation.
All right, we'll leave it there. So that's the news. JB is out. A new coach will be in. I'd say hopefully sooner than later, but more than anything, I hope they get it right. So, of course, we'll have all the coverage when that officially drops. And whenever the next episode of the Paws Up podcast drops, hopefully it'll be a banger and there will be a lot to talk about. A State of the Union for FIU athletics, if you will. So,
yes, we do need to get Scott back on the podcast.
We do, especially that should probably be the episode after the one with the new basketball coaches to figure out how that we can get the inside scoop on how that process ended up. So, but that's all in the future. For now, for Kevin and myself, we're saying so long. We'll keep you updated. Until next time.